Doors of opportunities will be opened in the ICT sector. Rahibite, GRTS News.
And over now to a bizarre incident where police are investigating a case of incest. A father residing in the Greater Banjul area reportedly had a carnal knowledge of his biological daughter and put her in a family way. Well, as we hear in this report by Samuel Barr, the police are trying to find out what happened to the baby that was subsequently delivered by the daughter.
51-year-old CD5 and resident of Kotu South was recently nabbed by security operatives for allegedly having carnal knowledge and impregnating his 19-year-old daughter. The accused in December 2013, after impregnating his daughter, is said to have successfully assisted her through delivery and minutes later strangled the newborn baby to death.
Here we are talking about a father having carnal knowledge of a daughter to the point of pregnancy. And not only that, when the baby was born, the father went on to murder the child by holding the throat, depriving the baby of breath until it died, and then went on to bury it.
CD5 is also reported to have been an ex-convict from 2008 to 2010, leading to his divorce later before he reunited with her daughter in 2011.
CD5 is an ex-convict because between 2008 and 2010 he was convicted and he was in prison. But prior to that he was married and had a daughter. But then the marriage ended up in a divorce. The daughter grew up with the grandparents. When CD5 was released from conviction, he met the daughter someday, introduced himself to her, and they became friends. Well, eventually he asked that she should come and live with her. And so this victim, this young girl, had been living with the dad since 2011 when she was only 17 years old, until this incident actually happened.
Security operatives have also been able to gather that this is not the teenager's first pregnancy, as the young victim is also reported to have been impregnated earlier in 2011 by her father.
We have been able to gather in our investigations that in fact this is not the first pregnancy. She was earlier pregnant by her dad and had to go and undergo an abortion. And this time around, the baby was born, but then it was the dad who helped in the delivery. He helped in the delivery, did everything, but then took the baby immediately after birth. It was born alive, went and then held the truth until it died and then buried it.
This isolated compound in the heart of Kotu South is where the accused lives and held her daughter as virtual prisoner, sexually abusing her. Here is the exact spot where the accused is alleged to have buried the newborn baby shortly after delivery. He is currently charged on 2 counts, incest and murder.
CD is being charged on 2 counts. One is incest and the second one is murder. Well, CD's case, or the victim's case, is one that has come out into the open. But we are aware of the fact that there are a lot of people who are undergoing a lot of abuse. A lot of our young girls are undergoing a lot of abuse, whether it's by parents, whether it's by relatives, whether it's by people living around the neighborhood. They may be afraid to come out and complain. Some of them are not even aware that they are being violated on. But then those of you who know that you are perpetrating these things on young children, those of you who are victims and you are afraid to come out and complain, don't wait until it's too late or it is completely worse. Come out and report.
While the teenage victim is reported to have been evacuated to some family relations, the accused since his arrest has been making threats of committing suicide. And until now, security operatives may have to keep close watch on him as he awaits his fate. Samuel Ba, GRTS.
Well, do you ever think about it that smartphones will one day diagnose people carrying the malaria virus? Well, this is happening in Uganda. When we come back, we'll also look at how relatives in China and Malaysia are preparing for the worst case scenario after Malaysian airline disappeared on Saturday. Don't go away. Welcome back. It will undoubtedly be considered a breakthrough if everything works as planned. Ugandan engineering students and researchers have combined forces to establish a convergence that will enable people to test themselves on smartphones using a highly sophisticated hardware. The experiment is in its embryonic stages, even though researchers say all that it is required is to put one's index finger on the phone and wait for the answers. Well, details in this report by CFI.
Diagnosing malaria. It's an innovative technique proposed by Ugandan researchers. These science students at Makerere University collaborated with engineering students and developed a prototype that plugs into a smartphone and can detect malaria using only light. The principle is simple. The patient puts his index finger in an infrared sensor that detects the oxygen content in the blood through the skin. It's a reliable indicator of malaria infection. There is no need for needles or blood samples.
We are looking at designing a custom hardware that you can use at home. Just the hardware on its own. You don't need a smartphone. Like I may use a thermometer at home to test for your temperature. You can have this hardware or test for your malaria and to use it with your family. So generally in the long run it is cheaper than any diagnostics that exist in, I think, in Africa.
The technique doesn't require a lab technician either. Malaria accounts for 15 to 20% of all hospitalizations in Africa, and if this Ugandan innovation works on a broader scale, it will mark significant progress in diagnosing this disease.
The fact that with a phone and just a probe you can be able to detect whether you have malaria is very innovative and has the potential to revolutionize how malaria is actually diagnosed in our country.
The technique is expected to be on the market in Uganda during the month of April. It will be available for about $150, including the smartphone.
The embattled South African athlete Oscar Pistorius broke down in the courtroom when graphic details of how his girlfriend was murdered were narrated by a prosecution witness. And the human rights violations in the Central African Republic is high on the United Nations agenda. The world body is sending a team to Bangui to find out what has happened to the thousands of people who have disappeared or killed in controversial circumstances. We have details of these and other stories in this roundup of news.
By the United Nations is expected to arrive in the Central African Republic on Tuesday. The news was announced by the Commission's President Bernard Achemuna of Cameroon. The goal is to investigate human rights violations in the country. The Commission will spend 2 days in Bangui before visiting the rest of the country for 2 weeks. A first report will be submitted to the Security Council in June. First in tears, then physically sick, South African athlete Oscar Pistorius broke down repeatedly on the 6th day of his murder trial, particularly during the reading of a graphic autopsy report of his slain girlfriend Riva Steenkamp's injuries. TV cameras were banned from the courtroom as the chief judge ruled there would be no live broadcast of the evidence. A security guard who testified in the hearing said he spoke with Pistorius after the shooting and that Pistorius responded, "Everything is fine." In the World Indoor Athletics Championships, Genzebe Dibaba of Ethiopia won women's 3,000-meter gold on Sunday in Sopot, Poland. The 23-year-old Dibaba, who has broken 3 world indoor records this season, completely dominated the race, finishing ahead of defending champion Helen Onsando Obiri of Kenya. Muriel Abure of Côte d'Ivoire lost the gold to 2-time Olympic champion Fraser Price of Jamaica. In men's events, Ethiopian Mohamed Aman defended his 800-meter title. He finished the race in 1 minute 46.40 seconds. African athletes won a total of 10 medals in the championships. 4 of them are gold.
Relatives of passengers on board a Malaysian airline that disappeared between Malaysia and Vietnam are preparing for the worst-case scenario. Barely 6 days to go before the referendum, thousands of Ukrainians have been holding spirited rallies in support of Russia's bid to sway the vote in Moscow's favor. And Brazil is warming up in calm anticipation for a keenly contested tournament. Let's look at this roundup for what else is making news around the world.
held a rally 1 week before a referendum to determine if the southern Ukrainian region of Crimea wants to immediately